Hey friends, my name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Look at all these propellers. Welcome to Soldering Sunday. We are going to be putting the... I thought that I'd finally killed one of these Aikon AK32 35 amp old school BL32 ESCs. And I don't think I have. I installed my last backup one of these ESCs. These have been discontinued for years. I installed my one final remaining one that I'd kept fresh in the package a couple of weeks ago. And that was like 2 days after BL32 shut down. And I got it all hooked up. And it had a very old version of BL32 on it because these are old ESCs. So old that it doesn't even have RPM filtering. And technically you can flash these onto AM32, but it's not easy. You got to solder to like the absolutely microscopic traces on here. And I'm very curious whether or not I actually killed this or not. I'm pretty sure that I didn't because one of the wires going to the LED race wires I found out was broken, and I'm 99% sure that was the problem. So I think it's actually a lot less work. In order to update this ESC that's in here, I would have to take it out of there anyway to get access to the microscopic little pads on the bottom to update the damn thing to AM32. So if I would have to take it out and then reinstall it, I might as well take it out and then install this one that I'm pretty sure is good to go, and then I'll hang on to that one. And like what I'm hoping is that at some point BL32 says, hey, we made a mistake taking everything down. Here, you can at least update your existing stuff. And then I don't have to solder to the stupid little pads on that thing. But, yeah, my fingers are crossed in that respect. But yeah, I mean, the long and short of it is, it'll take me the same amount of time to put this guy back in, and I'm pretty sure that this is good. Also, if I put this back in and it is bad, channel 3 is bad, then I know that I can throw this away. I had almost thrown this away when I found that wire was broken. So, yeah. A little bit of muff busting there. Hey, I flew some stuff today. I did a little bit of testing today. First and foremost, the first thing that I tested was the sub 250. Now they're these sub 250 HQ 40mm biblades, and they are not balanced. Sorry, 1mm motor shaft version. I flew the 1S Walksnail 75mm build that we've been developing over the last couple of months. And I flew it with the VCI 0802.8 27,000 kV motors. I had the tune pretty locked in on the gem fans. I put these HQ 40mm biblades on there, and it tried to fly away. I had to move the PID tune down by... I had to move the PI and D gains down on the sliders by 0.3 in order to get it to work with these props. No. And then I put the gem fans back on it, and I was able to push the PIDs back up. The end. If there are two propellers and one propeller is significantly better balanced than the other, like the scenario that just played out, get rid of the unbalanced propellers. So in terms of 1mm motor shaft, 1.6-inch propellers, the Gemfan 1610s are still king. I have no interest in these HQs. I do also have the 1.5mm motor shaft HQ, for 40mm diameter, 1.6-inch. Maybe these are better balanced. I didn't have a chance to test them yet today though, but I will. So yeah, do not buy, in my opinion, the HQ 1mm motor shaft 1.6-inch biblades. They are not as good as the Gem fans. Also, Brandon's Baked Beans mentioned on the last stream that they are less efficient, and he said less efficient. I remember from previous testing that they also make less power. So they don't do anything better. Less power, less efficiency, and they're balanced worse. So yeah, myth busted and confirmed. I'd previously tested and found that the Gem fans were better. This is me retesting. There you go. That's what I was trying to say a second ago. I also tested the VCI motors versus the BetaFPV 1102s. Both of these motors I've put a bunch of batteries through and crashed it. Not super hard, but a bunch of crashes into sticks and grass and tree trunks and stuff like that. Not like hard jungle gym bashing, but both of these sets of motors are used. They've been used. On the VCI motors, I had the tune pretty good. Like I said, first thing I did was test the propellers. Next thing I did is test the motors, and so tune on the VCI motors was pretty damn good. Flight performance was really decent. My main complaint is runtime. I'm only getting like 1 minute and 50 seconds of runtime out of these folded cell 1S 450s. Put it onto the BetaFPV 1102s, and it tried to fly away. I had to pull the PID tune down that same amount, 0.3, to get the BetaFPV 1102s to just fly, just to get them to perform, right? I do like how they fly, and they are turning a higher RPM. This is super important. 28. I put it in the stream title. I didn't put it in the stream title. Hold on. I know, I put it in my little note. Where's my little sticky note? On the computer. In the computer. There it is. VCI 0802.8, 0803, 27,000 kV. Right? This turned 44,600 RPM on a fresh battery at full throttle. BetaFPV 1102, 22,000s, 27,000, 22,000. Fresh battery, this turn 46,800 RPM. 2,200 more RPM from a motor that's only 22,000 kV versus 27,000 kV. What that tells us is this motor, this 0802.8 VCI motor, does not have the grunt, the power, the torque to turn these 1610 biblades up to anywhere near what its rated kV is. And so basically, this motor at 27,000 kV is no good. I didn't realize they also make this motor in 25,000 kV. I am super curious about that. Definitely 25,000 kV would be a better choice. Not definitely. More than likely, 25,000 kV would be a better choice for this motor on this build. Like with 99% certainty. The 1% difference in certainty there would be if the 25,000 kV motor, the thickness of the windings is less dialed in than the thickness of the windings on the 27,000 kV. And there's really no way of telling that without tearing these motors apart. So we're just not going to know that. With each individual kV of motor, the motor manufacturer should optimize the thickness of the copper that they use, the copper wire that they use for the windings. What we're seeing is that what we have seen, and what we're seeing even more clearly lately, with a few people that are hand winding these motors. There's a Facebook group actually, is that the motor manufacturers are not optimizing that. We've talked about this in the past, how the easy and cheap way to make an FPV motor is to they don't hand wind these things, they machine wind them. So you set this wild looking machine up with a thickness of copper winding material, and you set it up for your lowest kV motor, and then you just tell the machine to do different and then for your higher kV motors, you leave the machine alone and you tell it to do less winds. And so what can happen is on the higher kV motors, they don't have as much copper on the stator, which makes them make less power even though they make more kV. We can't say that between these two motors, because this is an 1102 and this is an 0802.8. So we can't make that assertion between these two. You have to it's only going to be on the same motor with different kVs. And the only way to figure that out is to buy one of every kV of their motors, tear them apart, micrometer the thickness of the windings. And so I'm super curious to try. So yeah, VCI 0802.8 27,000 kV motors, no good on this build. The 25, I mean, they're okay. I still do think I like them better than these BetaFPV 1102s. I have some flight footage. What you were watching at the beginning of the stream is actually this setup here on the BetaFPV 1102s. The major bummer with these 1102s is that I have to move the PID tune down quite a bit. These motors are not as well balanced. I've run these BetaFPV 1102s for many years. These are the original motors that I chose for the tiny lifters. And they were a motor that, like, out of the box is out of balance. And the motor shafts don't seem to be all that strong. And so, yeah, super disappointed yet again with these BetaFPV 1102s, which is really annoying because they make great power and they have great efficiency. Yeah, these VCI 0803s, basically, the tune was much better. Well, here, I'll play some flight footage for you. So this is going to be the VCI motors. These first couple of batteries were not as fresh as the batteries that I was flying on the 1102s. But just pay attention to prop wash. The wibbling and the wobbling that you're getting is from some wind. I flew this thing inside and it was completely fine. You might not even be able to tell, but yeah, it's yeah. So there you go. Next up, in terms of the testing, is going to be I'm going to retest the RC and Power 1002 22,000s. Basically, I'm confirming a lot of the stuff that I previously figured out. One of the things that I previously figured out is that the RC and Power motors are better balanced, so you can push the PID tune higher, but you don't get quite as much power and quite as much efficiency as you do on the 1102s. Really, all of this is reinforcing that there's not a good motor. There's not a good motor for this build. Like 1S Walksnail 75mm, our motor selection just blows, and there's just not there's not the right motor. Maybe the VCI 25,000s will be significantly better. Christ, maybe the VCI 22,000s are the way to go. Because, like, yeah, we saw that these BetaFPV 1102 22,000s turned an extra 2,000 RPM. So, yeah. It's frustrating that we can't get... If we could get half-decent info from these motor manufacturers, it would make this whole thing infinitely easier, but, you know, that ain't gonna happen. Yeah, so again, this is the VCI motors here. This is me being a wanker. And now I think that we're on to the... hold on. So that was VCI. This file was broken. Okay, so I only have that one first file flying the VCI motors. This is now the BetaFPV 1102s with the tune turned down so that the damn thing would fly. So pay attention to the flight characteristics when it sits into prop wash. Watch when it does prop wash. Watch how hard it prop washes. The other thing that happens on the BetaFPV 1102 motors is it gains a bunch of weight. The VCI motors are the lightest. So in terms of like all up weight, yeah, the VCIs are king. But I'm not happy with any of these. And talking to Gruss, Tyler from Rotor Riot, who's had a 1S Walksnail build very similar to this, the Vision 20. He's in the same boat. I talked to him a bunch at Rampage. I wish I could have talked to him more, but he was busy. There you go. See it sitting down in the prop wash? See how bad that is? So this is just the BetaFPV 1102 motor. Like, it's not balanced enough for me to be able to get the PID tune high enough for it to eat prop wash. So even though it makes more power, even though it has more efficiency, it's out of balance. And that's a fucking deal breaker in the same way that propellers that are out of balance is a deal breaker. So, yeah. Super, super, super frustrating. Yeah, this is really annoying that, like, every single option that we have, there's something wrong with it, you know? Like, we have a bunch of different options, and they're sort of kind of okay, but they're just not good enough. And they're so close. So yeah, man, I'm annoyed, but the testing must continue. There has to be something. There doesn't have to be something. I hope that there's something that's like good enough, but apparently there's not. Yeah, I don't know. This is Why? BAD was first in the chat. FPV Toast was next. Hockey Rounds, Crom, SlowCal, Sprout, Walter Van Den Ord, Free Lojo, Tongue on FPV, Curtis Hayes, Hypnos, Notice, Northern Tier, Brandon's Baked Beans, Render, Rob Axelson, Northern Tier, Kilo Zebra, Douglas Otwell, LOL the Kittison, Render, Crom, what's up, friends? If you want the Gangly Man to say your name, either tag me or get into the chat early and say hello. If you want to talk directly to me in the chat, all you got to do is type CiottiFPV. You can put Nat in front of it, but you don't have to. But you got to spell my name correctly. Stop spelling my name wrong and then getting mad at me. It's your fault. If you want to support the insanity that is trying to be a full-time FPV jerkwad, head on over to CiottiFPV.com. Tons of different ways that you can help a brother out, none of which cost all that much money. Patreon helps me out the most, and you get the most benefit. You can jump onto my Patreon for as little as $3 a month. That's 10 cents a day. FPV is a cheap hobby, but it's not a free hobby. You probably have 10 cents a day. I swear to God, I will save you more money than $3 a month if you join my Patreon. You'll get email notifications. You'll get access to tech articles on the Patreon. You'll get a private YouTube playlist with all kinds of cool stuff. You'll get access to 2 different Facebook groups, full access to the Discord channel. Between all of those things, you will easily not buy a couple of products that are garbage, and that will save you way more than the $3 a month that you're going to pay to join my Patreon. And you're going to be, you know, one of the Gangly Gang, which is like the coolest community in FPV. I'm a little bit biased, but, you know, it is a very unique group of people that are very knowledgeable because we really dive deep into this stuff. And the only people that are willing to stay around are the people that actually understand stuff. So if you're trying to learn, this is an incredible community for that. If you're trying to learn a little bit deeper than just how to get up in the air, right? If you're trying to learn how to refine these things, how to build a rig that fits your flight style, and flies perfectly for you specifically, this is the community to do that with. This is the thing that we do very, very well, and this is what makes us super unique. You can buy yourself some fun stuff on my Etsy store or the Teespring store. You can work one-on-one with me if you really want to learn through Fiverr, or just message me and we'll get it scheduled. I am a little bit behind. If I haven't replied back to your Discord message or email, I apologize. I'm a little bit behind right now, but I'm going to be getting caught up this week, I promise. PayPal, if you want to do a super chat, but you don't want YouTube to take 30%, just if you do a PayPal, make sure you tag me in the chat and say, yo, Ciotti, check your PayPal. And then look at all these glorious affiliate links, my friends. These make content creators money, and they don't cost you or affect you in any way. Change your bookmarks, change your URL bar suggestions when you start typing something to be these affiliate links. When you start typing a website into the URL bar, you can remove that automatic suggestion. Remove all of your suggestions for these websites, and then hit these affiliate links a bunch of times. And then when you type FPVC into your URL bar, it'll think you want to go to my affiliate link, or if you still use bookmarks because you're from the 1900s like me, replace your bookmarks with affiliate links, and then you don't have to think about it. Amazon Get FPV, Pyro Drone, Race Day Quads, Newbie Drone, WeBleed FPV, FPV Cycle, Oh My God, Brain 3D, HD0, Flywoo, Emacs, Banggood, Camera Butter. Those are the websites that I have affiliate links to. It's free money. It helps a whole lot. And yeah, the more stuff we review, the more money you save. It's a big old cycle. Rob Axelson tagged me in the chat and said, Hola Collective. He also said, Hola Community. Hell yeah. Striker says, what's the current most updated analog Jungle Gym basher build, and what is more durable, 65 millimeters inside or 75 millimeters for front yard rippage? I don't know how to answer that what is more durable question. It completely depends on what you're crashing into. If your house inside is all carpeted, then 65 millimeter is going to be horrendously durable. If you fly 75 millimeters out in the front yard and you've got lots of hard objects that you're going to smash into, that's going to really hurt the 75. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's totally, it's all about like what you're crashing into. So yeah, current most updated analog Jungle Gym basher has not changed in a hot goddamn minute. It is a Mobula 7 1S ELRS with a motor swap. That's it. And the motor swap is still the iGao 0802 27000s with the 1.5mm motor shaft. I don't think those are in stock at the moment, so what you can do is get the 0802 25000s or 27000s with the 1mm shaft, and then get the RS the RS 0802 20,000 kV motors with the 1.5mm shaft. Pull the bell off of the RS, put it onto the SE or EX or whatever, any 0802 25,000 or 27,000 that you can find in stock. So yeah, that's still the formula. Crom says, "Are you going to try out AM32 so you can tell how much difference it doesn't make?" At some point, more than likely. I actually tested out AM32 fucking ages ago, and it was super similar. Rosser has done some very extensive head-to-head testing of BL-Heli32 versus AM32, and he found that AM32 is ever so slightly better. It's the only game in town now, so thank God that it exists. And it is better. It is better than BL-Heli32. So, the future is not bleak. It's super annoying that we've got all these BL-Heli32 ESCs that are stuck on the version that they're on. But yeah, we'll be all right. There's no reason to go. There's no reason to spend any more, in my opinion, any more time than. If you've got a BL-Heli32 ESC that has RPM, that is updated enough that it has RPM filtering on it, fly it until it breaks. There's no reason to do all the pain in the ass things that are required to get it onto AM32. Look at Rosser's testing. You'll see that there is a slight difference, but look, most of us are not good enough pilots to notice that difference. And so, yeah, run it into the ground until it breaks. Look, value your time. And fly that thing until it explodes, and then the next ESC you buy will probably be an AM32 one, and away you shall go. That's my opinion. June Loco says, have you added ELRS 2.4 to your bigger quads? I haven't. I've been waiting for the dual band stuff, and I'm really glad that I did, because it's now a realistic thing. It's not there quite yet, but boy are they close. So yeah, all the bigger stuff is still on Crossfire, which is super annoying. I have grown to really hate Crossfire, but it is solidly the second best, right? ELRS just absolutely destroys it, but it does work most of the time when it's not randomly unbinding itself for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So yeah, when the dual band stuff is out and there's a bunch of different options, and it's solid and good to go, I will move everything off of Cross. I cannot wait to get off of TBS. That's interesting. Yeah, I can't wait to get off of TBS gear. But yeah, the dual band stuff, in my opinion, is worth waiting for, because there are certain scenarios where 900 works better. There are certain scenarios when 2.4 works better. I have a couple of rigs that, I guess I just have. Yeah, no, I do have two. I have two rigs that have Crossfire and ELRS on them. And I have done a little bit of testing, bouncing back and forth between the two, and there are scenarios where Crossfire will go farther. And then there are other scenarios where 2.4 will go farther. These are the rigs that I've flown at the Criterium races. And the first thing I do for a couple of hours before, either the day before or the day of, is send them out as far as I possibly can to figure out how far I can go chasing the cyclists safely. And yeah, during that testing, I have seen that in different locations with different amounts of RF noise, right, is basically the thing. Either Crossfire or ELRS will work better. It's basically about how much garbage in that particular location is around 2.4 gigahertz versus around 900 megahertz. There are other things that go into it, but that's the main thing that is going to affect that. And so, yeah, dual band is best of both worlds. And dual band has been like right around the corner for a while. And so, yeah, I just hung in with Crossfire. Plus, I have a lot of rigs, and it's a pain in the ass to switch all of them over. But the dual band thing is like so good that it's like, yeah, that will be worth the time to pull these all down. We'll have a fucking live stream party, and I'll change 15 receivers and just absolutely hate my life. But yeah, we'll do like a 3-4 hour live stream and just knock that out. Striker says, nope, we got that. Danzel the Terrible says, hey, CiottiFPV and friends. Kevin James says, hello, everyone, CiottiFPV. Kevin James with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, dude. Very generous. He says, happy Sunday, feller. Happy Sunday to you as well, my friend. Danzel the Terrible says, couldn't the VCI Kv be overstated by the manufacturer, ... marketing? I mean, technically, sure. You could say that about anything. You could say that about any KV on any of these motors. If anything, I would think that it's... Yeah, I mean, what I've experienced here does not lead me to believe that the KV is over or understated. What the testing that I did today that I talked about a little bit ago tells us is that an 080... It tells us that this 080 2.8 motor doesn't have the power, the torque, the grunt to spin a 1610 propeller up to the RPM that we should get from the rated KV. That's all it tells us. Maybe this motor's KV is overrated. Maybe it's underrated. Maybe the thickness of the windings is not optimized. Maybe even an optimized 080 2.8 is just not enough stator volume at 27,000 kV to crank this propeller all the way up. There's no real way from this testing that I did to really dial down into that a little bit more. What I would need to do is get another set of these motors in 25,000 kV. I would probably need to get another set of them in 22,000 kV. If we were able to get these motors into if we were able to get all 3 KVs of these motors into Butterfly FPV's hands, he could take them apart, micrometer the windings, look at how many turns are on each stator pole, and we could figure out if they have optimized the thickness of the copper for this stator. But yeah. So I don't know what to do here, man. I waited like 3 weeks for these motors to get here, I think. No, I waited longer than that. And it was $50-something. I don't necessarily have another $100+ to throw at 25,000s, 22,000s, just as an experiment. The other problem with these motors is they only have a 1mm motor shaft. They have not bent yet. So much so that these 1mm motor shaft motors are better balanced than the BetaFPV 1102s, which is ridiculous, with a 1.5mm motor shaft. But still, I'm not going to throw another $100 at motors with 1mm motor shafts. These were an experiment that I'm glad that I did. Until these have a 1.5mm shaft, I'm not going to buy more of them. You know what I mean? I am not confident that a big fat Walksnail 75mm rig bouncing off jungle gyms is going to survive with a 1mm motor shaft. I'm pretty sure that it won't. And so, yeah. For the moment, I think the testing on this thing is kind of at a standstill, other than I do want to try I am going to run this head-to-head against the RC and Power 1002s, just to reconfirm that the RC and Power motors, don't perform as well as the BetaFPV 1102s, but they're better balanced. This will also be a sanity check in terms of the tune, the way that I've had to move the tune up and down between the VCI motors and the BetaFPV 1102s. So yeah, I'm still going to do this test, but that's going to kind of be it until another motor comes out. If VCI wants to send me some, if they want to send me these 0803s, 0802.8s in 25,000 and 22,000, I'll totally test them. But I ain't throwing $100 at 1mm motor shaft motors. Matter of fact, I'm gonna shoot VCI a message and ask them, and just give them the option to send me these, because they don't know who I am or what I'm doing. Maybe I'll talk to Mike. Mike is their rep. There. 0802.8. I would love to do a stream. Their lower KVs. I've been passing their 27,000s a bunch over the last few weeks. 22K and 25K. All right, so let's see. You never know. Cool. There it is, my friends. So yeah, there's the most current info on the 1S Walksnail Jungle Gym Basher. I don't know, man. It doesn't. I'm at the moment, I'm not calling any of these Walksnail rigs Jungle Gym Bashers anymore. They're too heavy, and they do not fly good enough, and the runtime kind of sucks, and there's all kinds of jello when you fly them during the day, which is when you're going to be maybe flying around jungle gyms. So I think these Walksnail 75mm rigs are more just like garden flyers than jungle gym bashers. I think the jungle gym basher is going to be an analog thing. I think it's super lightweight analog 65 and 75s. I think that your high KV 65mm indoor builds are every bit as good, and maybe even better. It depends. Hold on. Every bit as good in different ways, jungle gym bashers, as the 75mm build. Here are the strengths and weaknesses. 65mm inside build at a jungle gym is going to be lighter. 65mm high KV indoor build on a jungle gym is going to be smaller and lighter, and that's going to make shooting the gaps more consistent, and you're going to be more accurate with it. So it's going to be easier only if there's no wind. As soon as there's wind, since jungle gyms are outside, the 75mm build is going to perform a little bit better. So, yeah, there you go. I mean, this is kind of why, like, you sort of want to have both. It makes a lot of sense to have a 65mm powerful indoor build and a 75mm jungle gym basher, and you bring them both with you. You charge a bunch of batteries up, you bring them both with you. If it's windy, you fly. I mean, really fly them both, right? Charge 6 of each battery up, bring them, fly 12 batteries. Awesome. If it was windy, the 75mm rig probably performed better. If it wasn't windy, you probably had a blast with the 65, but fly them both, right? Because they both have their, don't like check the fucking weather before, well, I guess maybe check the weather before you leave. But like, we're only talking about a little bit of wind, man. Like, sometimes the weather won't show you like 5 miles an hour wind, and that's enough to really push a 65 around. So the easy button is just to bring the 75 out, because there's probably going to be wind, right? Well, it depends on where you live. So yeah, there you go. These Walksnail rigs, between the latency and the extra weight, jungle gyms are tight, man. Like, jungle gyms are just as tight as flying inside the house, maybe even worse so. So yeah, I mean, if you're only going to build one rig, it's got to be a 65, because you can fly it inside hard, and then you can jungle gym bash like crazy. And if it's not windy, holy hell, are they fun. So yeah, if you don't care about flying inside, then you should build a 75, because you're gonna get wind outside. You just are. And then doing other things, it's gonna carry its speed better and throw better and stuff like that. So yeah, there you go. Kevin James, thanks again for the super generous $20 super chat. Elias says, what would you say why the prop guard style Cinewhoop got more popular than the old school ducted Cinewhoops? I feel like nobody flies these things like the Bumblebee anymore. That's a great question, Elias. What Elias is asking is, why the hell have the OG style Cinewhoops become so much less popular, so much less common? And there's a really straightforward answer to that, believe it or not. Versus the the upside down pusher prop guarded setups. And it's because this is a tool used on film sets, TV shoots, music videos, stuff like that. This is not fun to fly. Most FPV pilots do not work in the world of professional FPV. So most FPV pilots have no reason to fly something like this. This is what came out first. And so there was a huge wave of popularity. Oh my God, I can put a GoPro up in the air and not kill people because there's guards, right? So there was a huge boom in popularity of this style. This is a Cinewhoop to me. And so everybody builds one of these, but like 99% of FPV pilots don't fly in scenarios where this makes sense. Where this makes sense is that you're flying around people, and most people don't do that, right? These are loud. Typically, if you're going to fly these around people, those people they're not going to be strangers. If you fly one of these around strangers, somebody's going to get pissed and scream at you or call the cops or something like that. This is for set. This is for work. And so I fly this a lot. I fly this a ton. The pusher style prop guarded, I guess they're called Cinewhoops, but I don't really consider them to be a Cinewhoop. It's just like a prop guarded 3-inch or 3.5-inch rig. They fly way better from like a freestyle standpoint. So most people, and so there was that initial wave of popularity with the Cinewhoops, and then like everybody that doesn't work with FPV stopped flying. They put them on the wall, and there they sat. And then these prop guarded ones popped up, and the hype train kicks in, and of course everybody buys them. And they fly a lot better because instead of having a duct that's this tall, they have a prop guard that's this tall. And so of course that's when it's bashing through the static air, that's going to fly a lot better. And so for most FPV pilots that aren't working professionals with these things, they're going to enjoy the way that they fly a lot better. What's really funny is those of us that work in the FPV world typically don't fly those style of rigs because they're not as safe. They're not as safe, and they're not as slow. With just a little tiny prop guard, that shit's a liability on set. And not to mention that when you're flying with prop guards, the whole point is to fly slowly. This is where those pusher rigs to me are just insane. Like, they don't have enough propeller protection, in my opinion, to be safe to fly around people. They fly worse than a non-prop guarded rig that you would fly not around people. And so what are you doing? Why are you flying something with prop guards not around people? If you're not flying around people, get the prop guards off of it, and it's going to be more efficient and have better flight characteristics, yada, 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 yada. There are very, very specific scenarios where the prop guarded rigs do make sense. Like, for example, if you want to chase like dirt bike riders and the dirt bike riders aren't wearing full gear, then those prop guarded rigs make sense because they're faster, dirt bikes go faster, and if you've just got a rider in a t-shirt, you fucking better not be putting an unprop guarded 5-inch rig near them, because if you catch them, you're going to cut the shit out of them, right? And so there are a couple scenarios where those prop guarded rigs do make sense, but boy, is that rare. And they make, if you get the right Cinewhoop frame, like the Cinesplore, they make different height ducts for these. The V4 Cinesplore ducts are very thin, almost like a prop guard. So a proper Cinewhoop, you can adapt to different scenarios. It's one of my favorite things about the Cinesplore, is that there are a bunch of different ducts available. So this is my ultra lightweight one, and being ultra lightweight, it is for going as slow as possible. And so I have these massively tall Cloud 149 ducts that live on this guy. This is the analog Cinesplore. This is the digital Cinesplore. It's got slightly more powerful motors. It's slightly heavier, so it's for going a little bit faster. And I've got not quite as tall ducts on this. In my bag, if I'm going to a gig that I think I might have to go faster than what these ducts are comfortable, I will bring a set of the V4 ducts, and I can remove 1, 2, 3 screws, take these off, drop those on, and now the rig will go even faster. Those prop guarded rigs have none of that flexibility. They only go fast. Trying to fly one of those prop guarded setups like inside of a house or around really slow moving subjects is a goddamn nightmare, because they just want to go fast and they're very slidey. Having these tall ducts slows this thing down and makes it much more accurate. If you're the best pilot on Earth, none of this matters because you can just fly around all this stuff. I'm not, and you probably aren't either if you're watching me. The best pilots on Earth are busy working. They're busy on set. That being said, it still does matter, right? Like, obviously, the best pilot in the world flying the best gear in the world is going to be the best scenario. But yeah, a lot of the really high-end pilots don't have the time to do the testing, and they don't watch stuff like this to learn this, and so they just fly whatever the hell a lot of them still fly squirts, which is insane, because those things, I mean, it's shocking how decent they are, but that was the very first Cinewhoop, and there's all kinds of issues with it. So yeah, it's there you go. Great question. Walter says, how does the new Mob 6 motors, the high KV? What's that mean, Walter? Tag me again and ask me that question in a different way. I don't know what that means. Freelojo dropping the CiottiFPV.com link. Thank you for that, brother. Danzilla the Turtle says, see Skull 901's question above. Thank you for doing that, Danzilla. Skull, when you want to ask me a question, type CiottiFPV into it. Well, maybe you didn't want to ask me that question. Maybe you were just asking the chat that question. But Danzilla rightly saw that you asked a good question that it makes sense for us to talk about. So here we go. Skull says, is there a better lens for the Nano 3? There is not. Very rarely with these tiny little cameras can you replace the lenses at all. A lot of times they super glue the lenses down. So yeah, with these tiny little cameras, 99% of the time, if you blow up the lens or if you want a different lens, no, you buy a different camera. You buy a replacement camera, or you buy a different camera that has the wider field of view that you're looking for, or the narrow field of view that you're looking for, yada, yada, yada. Good question, brother. WeBleed FPV's in the house. What's up, Zotech? He says, what's up? Happy Sunday. Hope all is well. All's well here. Hope all's well for you. Hey, I did see WeBleed has been asking the community for feedback on the crown frame. The WeBleed FPV crown frame has been out for a while now. So not we've all, but a lot of us have used them, tried them, and probably have some feedback. So provide Zotek with that feedback. It sounds like maybe he's going to do a V2. The feedback that I gave way back when is pretty dialed in to the feedback that I've seen, which is basically that the height of the all right, so this is the Mobula 6 2024 frame, and these are the screws falling out of it. This frame has the same, I'm going to use the word issue, but I'm going to use the word issue lightly here. It's not necessarily an issue, it's just a thing that's unique about it. Which is the height of the, god damn it, the height of the the height of the duct, the height of the, oh my god, I can't believe I just found it, vertical part of the duct that the propeller is supposed to ride inside of, and it's basically just a little bit too high for Happy Model motors. Are these screws going to fall out again? Probably. All right. Well, fuck it. Let them fall out. Fall out, screws. Go ahead, you jerks. Fall out. I have to hold this thing right side up to show you this. Otherwise, you'll be very confused. Hold on. I'm getting the screws out of here. I don't know why I've had this thing sitting on my desk. Taking up space in front of the toolbox. There we go. All right, so from the motor mount down here, the top of the motor mount to the guard, the duct, the vertical piece of plastic here, right? This distance is a little bit too tall on the crown frame if you want to use Happy Model motors, which are the most powerful and the most efficient motors that we've got at the moment. So most people run the Happy Model motors. The original Meteor 65 frame, the Meteor 65 Air frame, the Mobula 6 2024 frame, and the crown frame, they've all used that same height. And that height that they've used works perfectly on BetaFPV motors and the VCI motors. And so if you're running those motors, yeah, you're fine. But most of us are running Happy Model motors. The newbie drone frames are optimized for the lower motor height. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but they just, yeah, they've stumbled into that, I have a feeling. Which also probably means that the newbie drone motors are a little bit shorter. I can tell you the answer to that right now. Yes, they are. For sure they are. Yeah, so the newbie drone motors, the newbie drone motor propeller mounting height is the same, it looks like, as hold on. Let me double check that. As Happy Model. I can tell you that right now. Yep, exactly the same. So newbie drone motors, Happy Model motors work perfectly in the newbie drone frames. So the Cockroach V3 and the Light AF. Oh, I got to show you something on this too. Actually, let me leave this in front of me to remind myself. I broke a Light AF frame, and I'm going to show you where it broke. It's super interesting. So that is the main criticism for me. And when that duct is too high, when you crash, the propeller is riding around here. This is the duct. When you crash, the propeller goes under the duct, and the propeller will smack into the wall. It'll rotate out of the way, and the duct will bend like crazy. So what happens is the ducts do go oval, And then that's when the next problem is caused, where the ducts go from round to oval, and then you have to bend them back. And every time you bend them back, you're weakening the plastic. And then and so yeah, so the duct, the height of the vertical part of the duct being corrected will also fix the durability issues that I've had on those crown frames. I haven't necessarily had them break, but they just crease. And they just go out of round constantly, and you're constantly having to bend it back for the propeller to spin again. So those problems are all kind of tied together with the height of the duct. That's really the main thing. That's really the main issue with them. I have found that the newbie drone frames handle vibrations a little bit better. When I switch from, I can move my PIDs up on the newbie drone frames. I have to pull my PIDs down on the crown frame. So the crown frame is a little bit more wobbly. It's a little bit less stable in terms of absorbing vibrations. Those are the two big things. I don't know if I've seen any other feedback, but if you have feedback other than that, Zotac is looking for it, and that's super cool. Because yeah, a lot of manufacturers put a product out and they're like, there it is, okay, buy it. Oh, you didn't buy it? You're an asshole. You didn't buy our product, you're an asshole. Oh, you don't like our product? Nah. It's you, man. You're the asshole. Oh, you have constructive feedback? No, we don't want to hear it. You're a jerk for not buying our product. You're an idiot. We make the best product. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you're the one that uses it? That doesn't matter. We're the manufacturer. We're better than you. You're an idiot. That's the I don't know. Maybe not, but so yeah, get Zotac some feedback if you have some other feedback. I know that he knows with the duct height. I know that he knows that. And I also know that I told him a long time ago about the PIDs. So he knows those two things. I mean, if you want to reiterate those things, that's fine. But if you have any other feedback, definitely let him know. My absolute favorite thing about the WeBleed frames, and this is not trivial, is the color selection. The colors are absolutely amazing. We have wireless cameras all over the place. Look at this. We've got these little wireless cameras everywhere. Look at these colors, man. Come on. Look at those colors. Oh, it's in low voltage mode. And then look how cool WeBleed is, either on purpose or by accident. They also even made trans flag colors. You can make your own little stack of boy, does that look like ass. You can make your own little trans flag setup. So yeah, the colors are amazing on the WeBleed frames. It's just they don't perform quite as good with my setups and in my experience as the Newbie Drone Cockroach V3 and Light AF. But if you're running VCI or BetaFPV motors, they are going to perform really well. If you're running those taller motors, your other options are the old school Meteor 65 frame, which is heavier, but it is going to be a little bit more durable because it has more standoffs, more supports to the duct area. The Beta 65 Air frame, which I believe is a little bit lighter weight, but I don't think it's as durable, if I remember correctly from when I was testing them. Nope. I was testing them with Happy Model motors. Once you have the right height motor on, the Meteor 65 airframe, I don't know. I don't know where it would be at durability-wise, but that's a really strong contender there. The other option, if you're running those taller motors, is the Mobula 6 2024 frame, which seems to be really durable. but it might not be as good from a vibration standpoint. If you're running those taller motors, buy yourself a crown frame, buy yourself a Meteor 65 airframe, buy yourself a Mobula 62024 frame. You'll have spent $13 whole, all said and done, on that, and then run them for yourself and see which ones you like the best. No shame in buying the crown frame in the amazing color that you like the best, because it's a perfectly good frame, you know what I mean? But if you're desperate to, be insane like me and chase that last 1% of performance, then yeah, the color's not going to matter as much. Check this out, man. I broke a light AF frame in a way that I haven't broken one of these frames before. I marked it in red for you. It cracked there. You can actually see the crack, and then it cracked down through there. What I think happened is I hammered this left front motor number 4 really hard, because watch this. When I simulate a crash up here, hold on. You can kind of see it. See it trying to bend that area? When I smack this front corner, when I push up on this rear corner, it doesn't really do the same. I guess it kind of does. But yeah, interesting where this broke. You would think that this frame would break like out here somewhere, right? They made this thinner. They're only running the 3 supports. Kind of fascinating that it broke up in there. Right? I kind of almost want to say that that's where I would like for these frames to break, because I feel like breaking there is going to have less of an impact on you continuing to fly the damn thing. Like when you break a frame out here, or when you break one of these, this part here, it's kind of unflyable at that point. Like it's sort of flyable, but it's going to start the duct is going to hit the propeller, and this is a much more flyable spot for a frame to break. So yeah, I've got 5 more light AF frames on the way, because I'm going to put them on a bunch of different quads. I've only ever had this one that they sent to me for review. So yeah, I've got a bunch more. I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, maybe in the next version of the frame that'll be reinforced, or maybe none of these frames will ever break there again. Maybe this was a totally one-off thing. But I should know soon enough, because yeah, I'm going to be I'm going to swap this frame out, and then I'm going to put a bunch more of these rigs onto this frame. The Ultimate Freestyle Tiny Whoops, the standard high KV crazy ones, are all still on the V3 frame, so I'm going to move these guys over. Yeah, so that should be cool. Some testing is coming there. Yeah, and we're also going to do, this is going to be cool, I'm really looking forward to this. We're going to do 0702 36,000 kV smackdown test, light AF frame versus V3, Cockroach 65 V3. I've got 2 identical rigs, both on the 36,000s. One of them is on a fresh V3 frame. One of them is on a beat up. The rig that I flew a ton at Micro Mayhem at Rampage, that frame is just hammered assholes. And so it's going to come out of that frame and go into a light AF frame. And then I've got this one that's on a fresh Cockroach V3. So that'll be really cool. We'll be able to see what the weight difference is between the 2 full builds, light AF versus V3. And then we'll be able to see if there's any like performance differences between the 2. That should be pretty cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun. This is going to stay. I put that newbie drone order in last night. So yeah. Focus says, and also book a private session with CiottiFPV, can learn so much in a short period of time. I've done it several times, and my good buddy even more than me. Fiverr is where I got it, and it was ace. Thank you for saying that, Focus. Yeah, I mean, I just info dump everything I possibly can into these live streams, right? Like 8 to 10 hours a week, every single week. Because of Apache Smoke Wounded Sniper, there are there is the potential that you can search my channel and find the answers to most of your questions. Doing a one-on-one session with me, though, you can just rapid fire every single question, and I'm going to ask you questions so that my answers to your questions are specifically catered to you. If you only fly 65mm tiny whoops in the house, the answers to some of these questions might be a little bit different than a more generic answer that I give to somebody that just says, what's the best frame? You know what I mean? So, yeah, working one-on-one with me on Fiverr, like, for example, right, if you book a half an hour-long session, you're going to get, like, 4 to 6 months worth of information all at once. And so if you have an extra $40 or an extra $60, that's a pretty damn good deal. And a lot of the people that do that stuff, they'll come into that session like, hey, I was about to buy X, Y, and Z. And during the session, I'll be like, yo, don't buy X or Y or Z. And like not buying those things easily pays for the session. Maybe it's full blown like, don't buy them, they're garbage. Maybe it's like, buy this other stuff instead. So like sometimes it literally saves you from buying trash. Sometimes it's like, hey, don't buy that, it's not going to perform as well. Here's something that's going to perform better. So yeah, sometimes it literally saves you from buying something that's going to catch on fire. Sometimes it's just, here's some stuff that'll actually work better for you. So yeah, there you go. Thank you for saying that, Focus. Very cool of you. Rock Caller says, hey, gangly gang, it's Ciotti. Elias says, does the Amazon affiliate also work on EU Amazon? I think so. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know how to find the answer to that other than just Googling it. Do US Amazon affiliate links also work worldwide? Also work Mr. Worldwide. Google's AI overview says yes. Wait, no, here we go. Oh, damn. That's funny. AI is the greatest. No, it isn't. AI says yes. Amazon, in their resource center of their affiliate program, says no. Amazon's affiliate program typically requires separate affiliate links for different Amazon storefronts, which are specific to each country or region. I'll be damned. It looks like you have to be localized, though. It looks like, because like Amazon knows, yeah. So it looks like I can only really do U.S. Amazon affiliate links. Thank you for asking that. It means that you care, and that's what's important. All the other affiliate links will work shipping outside the U.S. Kinetic says, does an 85mm whoop have any advantages over a 75mm for outdoor freestyle? Yeah. You can run bigger motors. You can carry bigger batteries. The problem with 85mm whoops is if you want a tiny whoop bigger than 75mm, bail on the tiny whoop format and build a toothpick. 75mm is the sweet spot. Going up to 85mm, yeah, you end up with like a really heavy plastic framed build. And like all of that extra weight is going to make it carry more momentum and be more slidey. And at that point, you might as well build a toothpick because that's going to be not quite as slidey. The other problem with 85mm whoops is that there's a ton of duct in view because the frame's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and the camera is in the middle. Yeah, you end up with like loads of duct in view, which is just kind of ugly. So yeah, the 85mm whoops don't make a whole lot of sense to me or most people. They're not very common. Most people, I think, have bought or built them come to this same kind of conclusion. But technically speaking, yes, there are advantages. Bigger motors, bigger power, bigger batteries. It also, those frames allow you to run 4-bolt motors. The 75mm, 65mm, we run 3-bolt motors. So your motor selection really opens up on 85mm. For someone, 85 mil whoops are the perfect scenario, the perfect solution. For most people, they are not, is what I'll say. Hopefully that makes sense. Good question. Striker says, floor is tile, so I don't know with 65 millimeter, but outside is all grass. So that's what I was thinking. Yep, everybody's scenario is a little bit different. So yeah, there you go. Striker also says, you probably can't answer because not enough info, but I just want to know what will last me longer, but unfortunately might be something that won't be answered with experience. Yep. Can I get a channel? Says, excellent answer. Thank you, dude. Skull901 says, is there a better lens for oh, we got that. He tagged me this time. Nice, Skull. You got it. Wilco says, what's the AIO in that Mobile 7 1S? It is the Happy Model X12. I tried 75 millimeter with 2G4. It gets hot. Wondering if X12 would be better. The 2G4 is completely fine on 75 millimeter. The X12 is not going to be any better. If you had a 75 millimeter rig on the 2G4 and it got too hot, there was a problem. There was a mechanical problem. Your props were out of balance. Your motors were out of balance. You didn't build it right. You had like a wire pushing up between the frame and the AIO. Maybe the frame that you chose to use doesn't work with the 2G4. Like, for example, the Meteor 75 Air frame that I use on these Walksnail builds will not work with a regularly sized AIO. The frame is designed for the BetaFPV cross-style AIO. So, yeah, you had a problem with that rig. There's nothing about the 2G4 that will cause it to get hot that the X12 will not. Here's the other problem with the X12, is that it is an oversized regular frame. So the X12 will fit even less frames, will work properly in even less frames than the 2G4. Basically, the only frame that the X12 is going to work in is the Mobile 7 V4 frame that it comes in. The 2G4 frame is normal, is a normal square-sized frame. The two really good frames, I have a regular Meteor 75 frame coming to test this on, but my two favorite 75 millimeter frames right now are the Meteor 75 Air and the Mobile 7 1S. Sorry, Mobile 7 V4. And so, yeah, the Happy Model AIOs, both of them, the 2G4 and the X12, only work on out of those two frames on the Mobile 7 V4. So, yeah, there aren't that many options, but I know the regular Meteor 75 frame is an option. I do have one on the way, so I'll be able to talk to that. But, yeah, there you go. Striker says, you tried the VCI 702 29,000s, right? What did you think of them? Only $37 for me, so cheaper than the other options like WeBleed. They are taller, so they won't work as well in the cockroach frames. They are less efficient than the Happy Model motors, and they make less power than the Happy Model motors. They're okay. They're very similar to the BetaFPV 0702s. So, yeah, the Meteor 65 Air comes with the BetaFPV motors. They're not bad. They're just not as good. Happy Model motors are better in pretty much every way, other than maybe durability. The VCI motors seem to be pretty goddamn durable. And I've heard people that I trust say that the material that Happy Model uses for their 1mm motor shafts is not as strong as the other motor manufacturers. I didn't run those VCI motors long enough to really get a feel for the durability, but they seem to be completely fine. Is this them? This is them right next to me right now, isn't it? Yeah. 0702. Yeah, this is them right here. I'm kind of done with them. If you want to buy these off me, I'll sell them to you. If you're inside the US, it'll make sense. If you're outside the US, the shipping will be prohibitively expensive. But if you're inside the US, I'll sell these to you if you want them. Yeah, I'm done testing them. I'm trying to think if there's any other scenario that I would want to test these things in. I don't think there is. Yeah, these are for sale. VCI. I have all of about 10 batteries through them. 8 of those batteries were chasing the RC drift cars where I don't really crash them hard. 1 or 2 batteries is flying around here. I don't remember any horrendous crashes. So yeah, they're fresh. Let me know. WTF is a kilometer says RS 0802 20,000 kV motors is DOA for that clear 65 millimeter from Instagram. What? If I put on one of my 30,000 kV motors, will it fry anything? Motor limiting to 70%. A 30,000 kV motor on 2S, I would motor limit it to like 60%. And I mean, you are going to be pushing the absolute limits. And you are not going to touch the motors tab. The motor limiting does not apply to the motors tab. So if you put 30,000 kV motors on a 2S rig and you go into the motors tab and you ramp one of those things up to 100%, that fucker going to burn. So yeah, technically you can do that, but you're good. Even with the motor limiting, that's going to be a little bit sketchy. I think what you're saying is that you've got one RS 802 that's not working, and you have another 30,000 kV 802 that you just want to use to fly the rig. It's gonna be a little bit sketchy, but you should be fine. The motor limiting should take care of it. WeBleed says, so you would like to see thicker motor shafts, 1.5 millimeter in 0802. Zotek, I would actually like to see 1.5 millimeter motor shafts across the board. What I learned fairly recently is that pretty much all Tiny Whoop motors are a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft down below the bell, and then they narrow down to 1 millimeter up above the bell. And that's just stupid. Unfortunately, all of the propellers but one, all of the 1.2 inch 65 millimeter rig propellers are 1 millimeter. So as much as I would love to see all 702, 802, 703, 803, all Tiny Whoop motors go to 1.5 millimeter, we need GemFan to get on board. What I will say is that the 1.2 inch biblades, the 1210s, they have a solid plastic hub on them, and because of that, technically these can be drilled out to 1.5 millimeters. The problem is it's hard to do that and keep the propeller well balanced. In order to do that, you have to drill it. You have to get a kit of drill bits, and you have to drill it 1.1, then 1.2, then 1.3, then 1.4, then 1.49. And that's time consuming and annoying, and there's still no guarantee that it's going to be perfectly centered when you're doing that. So, like, realistically, we need the prop manufacturers to make 1.2 inch props in 1.5 mil. There are other props like the GemFan 1.2, I'm sorry, the GemFan 1219S's that you can't even do that on because it's not a solid hub, right? It's a hub like this. And if you drilled this hub all the way up to 1.5, that inner plastic area would be so thin that it would probably break. It would probably break while you were trying to drill it out. So yeah, the 1219S can't be drilled out for that. The GemFan YOLO props, the ultralight 1.2s, technically they could be drilled out. They're a solid hub. It's a smaller solid hub, but it looks like there's enough meat there. Don't quote me. It could, maybe it is too small. Again, same issue where it's time consuming as hell drilling at 1.1, 1.2, 3, 4, 5. Well, not 5, 4.9, 0.49. And there's no guarantee it's going to be balanced. So, yeah. But if GemFan would get on board and make a 1.5 millimeter. So GemFan currently makes a 1208. It's not their old school design. It's their middle school design. The old school designed propellers are way too heavy and way too pitchy. They then came out with the 1208s. They came out with the 1210 biblade, the 1208 tri-blade, and the 1209 quad blade. And those were much lighter and much less pitchy. And they were really good. But now there's this new generation of propellers, the 1219S, which is even lighter, and that extra bit of pitch is actually nice. And so, yeah, there is a 1208 in 1.5 millimeter hole, mounting hole, and it's a pretty good propeller. It's not quite as light, not quite as pitchy as the 1219, and there's no biblade option in 1.5. So yeah, if we can get GemFan on board, I would love to see every single Tiny Whoop motor made from now on be a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft. There would be pretty much no sacrifice in performance. You could argue that the thicker motor shaft is going to be a little bit heavier. But look, you're going to take material out of the prop. So the prop is going to get lighter for the 1.5 millimeter shaft, but then the shaft itself is going to get a little bit heavier. Metal is slightly heavier than plastic. So yes, technically there would be a very slight performance decrease, but we're going to get way more durability. And we're also going to get less issues with the propellers coming off the motor shafts. The bigger the motor shaft, the more grip the propeller is going to have on it. So propellers flying off is going to be a problem of the past. So yeah, I would love to see the whole Tiny Whoop world go to 1.5. And then also, we wouldn't have this goddamn situation where we've got like fucking 75 millimeter rigs, like, oh, I can't get these motors because these motors are only 1 mil motor shafts. Oh, then I have to have 1 millimeter motor shaft 1.6 inch propellers, and then I've got to have a whole bunch of 1.6 inch propellers that are 1.5 millimeter motor shafts. And they, oh, I can't. Is this the right one? No, I brought the wrong one with me. I gotta go home. So yeah, I would love to see the Tiny Whoop world move to 1.5 top to bottom. That would be great. Dave S says, "What's the JJ Walks build way?" JJ Walks build? The only Walksnail build I've been talking about has been this one. So I'm going to weigh this one and hope that answers your question. 32.2 grams dry. No battery. 32.2. I forget what it weighed on the VCI motors, but it was undoubtedly less. It undoubtedly weighed less than that. Here's what I can tell you. I can give you the VCI motor these are both the same frame, same motor screws, same everything. VCI motors versus RC and Power 1002s. VCI motors with frame, with props, 15.2 grams. RC and Power 1002s, 16.2 grams. 1 gram difference between the VCI motors and the RC and Power 1002s. So, and from what I remember, the BetaFPV 1102s are 0.2 of a gram more per motor than the RC and Power 1002s. So that's going to add another 0.8. So, yeah. VCI 0802.8s are the lightest. Extra gram up to the RC and Power 1002s. Extra 0.8 of a gram up to the BetaFPV 1102s. RC and Power 802s. I'm sorry, 1002, 22,000s seem to be the best option. They're in the middle of the road. It seems like it's this. And the RC and Power 1002 22,000 seem to be the best middle of the road option. In terms of weight, they're in the middle of the road. in terms of performance, they're in the middle of the road. They seem to be the best balanced, and they have 1.5 millimeter motor shafts. So they're the most durable, but then they're in the middle of every other thing. Other than flight performance. Flight performance, they're the worst between these three. But in terms of runtime, they're in the middle of the road. In terms of efficiency, they're in the middle of the road. So yeah, RC and Power 1002s seem to be the best all-around solution to a 75 millimeter Walksnail rig. 75 millimeter analog rig, Happy Model 0802 27,000s with the 1.5 millimeter rotor shaft are king. Cool. Denzel the Terrible says, might see the WeBleed motor talk tomorrow when he checks chat. Denzel the Terrible pointing up towards, with a couple of up arrows. I think he's pointing up at WeBleed's comment. WeBleed says, I was going to work on our 802 WB line? WB? As we have the Borg Slayers dropping soon with 1 millimeter shaft knurled, but we can make them in 802. 21,500 kV was our baseline. I don't know what WB is. It's about to work. Borg Slayers dropping soon with 1 millimeter shaft knurled. But we can make them in 802. I'm a little confused. Just a little confused. Render with some up arrows pointing at something. YouTube just did the thing. I'm scrolling back up. Render's pointing up at Notice's message, I think. Notice says, at the top of the stream, I almost posted that any company in development for Whoop products who doesn't touch base or full-on consult with Ciotti is missing an obvious resource. Yeah, it's true. It's true. But, you know, I can't make them work with me. Verbalance says, do you have a favorite flight controller for Whoops without VTX? Yeah, at the moment, it's the BetaFPV Cross. The old school one that, like, all the racers run. It's been really good to me. I have 4 of them up on Walksnail rigs, and they've been completely fine. The racers bitch about them not being durable, but the racers crash really hard, and like all the time. So yeah, I don't know, but they've been really good to me. Focus says, had 107 work this week. Since I had literally no place to land, all I could do was fly a DJI Avata in the wilderness on rocks. Needed altitude hold to do it. But that's not easy now. I would think it is easy now, isn't it? And there's nothing wrong with flying an Avata, man. Those things are incredible. Parkour Guy says, can you tell me about your experience shooting the music video for Little Baby? What song was it? Thank you, Parkour Guy. Parkour Guy asked me that on like Instagram or something. And I said, yo, can you ask me that question on a live stream? Because... yeah, I'll show you some of the actual footage from it. So like a lot of this flight footage from these gigs, I'll show it to you at the beginning and the end of a live stream right around the time of the gig, but then like I don't have time to edit all this stuff. So it'll just sit here on my hard drive. And yeah, I'm especially after the music video is out. Like sometimes I'll also be on NDA. Usually I'm not. But yeah, before the music video is out, it's bad form to play any footage from the shoot. But once the damn thing is out, like it's fine. So this is some Mavic stuff. They had this top-down shot in mind. I brought the Mavic with me. Great. There he is. This is me trying to remember how to fly a fucking Mavic. I don't fly them much. This is what minimum $6 million worth of Rolls Royces looks like. This is upwards of $12 million in Rolls Royces, though. I don't know the specific brands, but you cannot get a Rolls Royce for less than $500,000, and this is 12 of the damn things. I think usually they're closer to $1 million each. So yeah, this is a shoot that production company called Real Goats, REELGOATS. Hey, there's me. Hired me for in downtown Atlanta, little baby music video. I forget which music video it was at the moment, but this was filmed on March 25th of 2022. So if you look in the middle of 2022, whatever the little baby music video was that came out, it's the one where there's 12 Rolls Royces in it, and they're driving around downtown Atlanta. There's a couple of shots, not many. They did not use much of my footage. I don't know if they used this shot or not. They might have. But yeah, this was one of the shots that they wanted. I did it with a straight push-up and then with a rotation. Not much you can really do with this style of shot. They used me more to get the cars parked properly than anything else, to try to get these cars in that shape so that they were somewhat symmetrical, and they didn't do that great of a job. It's still kind of like an oval, but good God, is it hard to do. It is hard to get cars perfect in a perfect circle like this, like a clock. But yeah, so this is the Mavic stuff I did. Just I mean, photography drone shots are photography drone shots. There's not a whole lot going on there, but gotta have them, I guess. So then the main problem with this shoot was that this was a big budget shoot with lots of actors, lots of moving pieces. When that happens, FPV gets pushed till like dead last. This was pretty cool that we had this police escort. They basically told me I could do whatever the hell I wanted, because they were going to be controlling everything on the ground, which is pretty cool. Yeah, they didn't use many of these shots. So like everything got pushed until dead last. We'd already lost the light. Look how low the sun is. They also, the organization of the route that these 12 Rollses were going to run was a hot mess. But the thing that really killed it is that they did not have like proper drivers. Really what they needed to do was get 12 somewhat professional drivers to drive these cars so that they could drive them nose to tail. And this is the main thing that I told them. I was like, look, you're not going to like any of these shots because there's going to be too much of a gap between these cars. And that's exactly what happened. Like I that shot there where everybody was slowing down to go into the gas station was the only one where the cars were really like close enough together for it to be half decent. And it's just nothing all that special. It's, they're not driving. It's kind of like an ugly part here. The boom car is there. We were trying to also get this when there was a train going by. There's like this chunk of traffic. This is kind of ugly, right? There's really not a whole lot going on here. This was also a shoot where and now we've really lost the light. This is also a shoot where I realized how important. This is where I learned how to put the sync points in. I had to resend them this stuff, and it looks like I didn't save those files where I'd manually put sync points in. But this was just the scheduling and just them pushing FPV till dead last completely killed this. We've now completely lost the light, and the GoPro. I'm 30 frames a second. I'm opened up to 1/30th of a second, and I think this is 800 ISO. There's nothing else that I can do. I cannot get any more light into the GoPro than this. They were also shooting. They were shooting with the boom cam, so he was in the way. they were just trying to do too much. I explained to them, like, look, when we want to do the FPV, the boom car's got to be out of there, and like we got to do 1 or 2 of these loops that we'd planned out just for me, and it just didn't happen. They ran out of time, and yeah, so I got what I could, which was not very much. Like that was it, and then yeah, this was super frustrating. This is a very frustrating thing, but at least I got something. And they got all of the important stuff. They got all the static stuff that they wanted. This is one of the, from what I remember, this is one of the only shots that they actually used. Is coming up here. But yeah, it was. Yeah, see, look, like the boom camera car is in the way, and it's like, it was just an organizational mess. And the cop cars are like leapfrogging the Rollses to try to get in front of them to close the streets down, and it was just ridiculous. We just basically ran out of time, and then I smacked into a street light there and had to land it in this guy's front yard, which sucked. But this is what happens when you fly into the dark. I can't see anything, right? Like, I can't see shit. So yeah, they were happy that I got anything. But I told them, like, look, this is, like, I'm way beyond, like, the footage that I'm going to give you now is not going to be really worth much of anything. And they were like, that's fine. We're getting we're filming with the boom car. If you can get something, great. If you get nothing, it kind of is what it is. When they push it like this to the very end, like, they know, like, all right, they're probably not going to get anything. Look, they're paying tens of thousands of dollars for the static camera operators and to rent the car with the boom cam on it and shit like that. The $1,000 that they spend to have on a FPV pilot's day rate is nothing in comparison. 10,000 is probably a pretty conservative estimate too. They're probably spending a hell of a lot more than that on the team of people that run these static cameras, and those are the important shots. And so yeah, it makes sense that they push the FPV stuff. So it kind of is what it is. That was I was really excited for, when the gigs are really big like this, it's really exciting, but you have to temper that, and you have to be realistic and realize that, like, you might not get to fly at all. I've done a couple of these where I don't fly at all. They push it and push it and push it, and then they forget about it, and it's like, nope, we don't have time for you. And that's, it sucks, but you're still getting paid. I would rather actually get paid less and have my footage get used more, but hey, that's not the way it is. Warg90 says, how do you protect the camera lens of a tiny whoop from scratches, sheet coating, etc.? You don't. They're very cheap. But I've actually never had one get scratched, come to think of it. But yeah, even if they do get scratched, it's like $15 for a replacement camera, away you go. But yeah, I don't think I've had a single one get scratched. Even now that I've been hanging these Walksnail light cameras outside of the canopy like this, I've still not scratched one. So yeah, it's just not a thing that really happens, fortunately. Tane RC says, can you tell me how you set up your secret OSD? Are you talking about the OSD on a switch, the clean OSD on a switch? Let's try this. Let me go to my channel, and there's a little magnifying glass right here on all YouTube channels. This will allow you to search the text within the channel. So descriptions, it'll search descriptions, it'll search titles of everything on that channel. So let's search for OSD on switch. And let me just open up the top two. Oh, it might be in this 10 mega Betaflight secrets. I'm pretty sure I covered it in here. Yeah. OSD profiles. Yep, here it is. Here it is. I don't know if this is exactly the timestamp, but this is going to be pretty close to the timestamp where I talk about it. And this is where it's done here in the adjustments, if that's what you're talking about. I assume that's what you're talking about. But yeah, that is because of the hard work that QuadBot and Apache Smoke Wounded Sniper have done, using this little search field on my channel works really, really well because it searches through all of those timestamps that have been created. So yeah, you can type full-blown questions into this little search field on my channel, and the first couple of videos will usually have the answer for you somewhere. Parkour guy says, with my Avata 2 manual camera settings, ISO 100 has the image completely blown out. This test was done on a sunny day, and EV gets grayed out on manual. Is that normal? And I just need an ND. So, trying to think of a quick way I can answer that. Images that are completely blown out are either from the shutter speed being too low, the ISO being too high, or the amount of light, or the aperture being too low, or the amount of light where you're flying being too much. It's not just an ISO thing. It's not just an ND thing. It's not like those four things work together. And so, yeah, Parkour guy, if you don't take offense to this, all right? It sounds like you might not understand how those four things relate to one another, and it's going to really benefit you to understand that. These are the four basic tenets of photography in general. So, if you do understand how those four things relate to one another, then I'm the problem. I am misunderstanding your question. But I have a feeling that you don't get how those four... So do this on YouTube. If you don't know how those four things relate to one another, and if you don't have a really good understanding of those four things, just here on YouTube, type in, like, search for, like, how does shutter speed work? How does ISO work? How do ND filters work? How does aperture work? In the results that you get to those four searches, I guarantee you that within a half an hour, you will understand how those four things relate to one another, and you will be able to fix this problem. If, even at ISO 100, with no ND filter in the bright sunny day, if your shutter speed is all the way down at, say, like 1/30th of a second or 1/60th of a second, and your aperture is also down at like f5.6 or lower, your shit's going to be blown out. And your question is a really good question. And the best way for me to answer your question is to tell you to understand those four things, because it sounds like you're getting interested enough where it's going to benefit you to understand how those four things relate to one another. And it's not that difficult. The lower the ISO number, the darker the image is going to be. The lower the aperture number, the darker the image is going to be. The lower the shutter speed, the brighter the image is going to be. 1/30th of a second is like, think of it like that. 1/1000th of a second is like that. This lets in a lot less light than this. And that can be super confusing. The lower the number of the ND filter, the more light gets in. And so those four things, it's not just like the lower the number, that, you know, like there's some weirdness that you need to kind of understand. And a half an hour on YouTube, you'll absolutely be able to figure that out. And you're going to find like still photography videos. That's fine. Shutter speed is shutter speed. It is how long the shutter opens. And the longer the shutter opens, the more light comes in and saturates. The aperture is how big the shutter opening is. A low aperture number opens the the aperture up opens the iris up all the way. A high aperture number just opens it up a little bit. I'm just opening my eyes up a little bit right now. The lower the ND number, the lighter the shade of filter is. So the more light gets through. The higher the ND filter number, the darker it is. So the less light gets through. Right? These are the and so once you have those four things locked in your brain, you'll be able to go out and you'll be able to get a proper exposure. That's the most important part. But if you really understand them, you will be able to begin to use them creatively. Because there are other attributes to each one of these things. Shutter speed being faster is going to freeze motion. And sometimes you want to freeze the motion. Your aperture being more opened with a lower number is going to give you less depth of field. Sometimes you want that. Sometimes you want more depth of field. So on and so forth. I could talk about this for another half an hour, but we don't have the time. But yeah, you need to get a good solid. All of you guys should get a good solid understanding of those four things. Aperture is not really important for GoPros because you cannot adjust it. But for Avadas, I think, for Mavics for sure. Mavics give you the option to change the aperture. Shit, Avadas might not. I don't know if the Avada has an adjustable aperture, but it's the f-stop number, f5.6, f10, f20. Yeah, I'm not sure if the Avada 2 has that. But still, get an understanding of it anyway, because it's just good to know. Maybe not. ND filters, shutter speed, ISO. At the very least, every single one of you should have a good basic understanding of those three things because they will make or break your footage. And if you actually understand them, you can make better flight footage. You can control the amount of motion blur. You can control the amount of noise. You can get shots in low light. When I flew the fireworks, it was pitch black out. And that video looks amazing because I understand how shutter speed and ND filters, you're not going to run an ND filter at night. But so basically just shutter speed and ISO. I understand how they work. And I also understand how they relate to frames per second. If you don't have that understanding and you go to fly fireworks, your footage is going to suck. It's going to be probably overexposed and it's going to look terrible. If you want to be an FPV pilot that can make watchable footage, you need to understand those three things. You might as well understand how they relate to... If you're not going to fly something with adjustable aperture, you need to understand frames per second as well. That's your fourth thing. So your fourth thing, if you're only ever going to fly GoPros, the fourth thing that you need to learn is how these are affected by frames per second. The frames per second affects the shutter speed. If you are shooting 60 frames a second, you cannot do a shutter speed of 1/30th of a second. It doesn't work. And so you need to have an understanding of frames per second as well. But yeah, all of you guys should understand these four things, potentially five things. They're not that difficult to understand, and they're going to make your footage way more watchable, and they're going to make you much more creative, and you can start to blur the lines between fighter jet pilot and filmmaker. Cool? Great question, brother. Parkour Guy says also, by the way, the only way to darken was 1600 shutter speed, but that ain't realistic. Continuation of the message. Yeah, so Parkour Guy, now I'm starting to think that maybe you do understand those four things. If you're outside in bright sunny sunshine, ISO 100 is as low as possible. And then you adjust if your aperture is adjustable, let's take aperture out of the equation. ISO is 100. Shutter speed, it's going to be variable. 1/1600th of a second is absurdly fast, and you don't want that. So you have to go to an ND filter. Bright sunshine, if you want motion blur, you have to run an ND filter. It's just the way it is, unless you have adjustable aperture. But yeah, I think I've confirmed here that the Avata 2 does not have adjustable aperture. That's just that's going to be a Mavic thing. So yeah, there you go. Jason Black says, "What do you think was the best worst Batman? Best worst Batman? Kilmer or Clooney?" Probably George Clooney. Yeah, Keaton's the best. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not that big of a Batman fan, to be honest with you guys. Andrew Taylor says, "Amazing rant." Haha, thank you, dude. Notice says, "Is it harder to see frame damage creases in a white frame?" No, I just wanted to remind myself that it was there. I put the red mark so that I wouldn't forget and just keep flying this thing. It was very easy. It was actually harder to see it when I red markered it. But yeah, I don't typically look there to look for the frames breaking. I usually look out here and on the ends of the standoff. So I was surprised to see that. This frame may have been broken like this for a while. That's just not a spot where I look. So yeah, I put the red there to remind myself more than to show you guys. Verbalance with a 2-pound super chat. He says, "Secure my UFL antenna on the flight controller, E6000 or hot glue?" Great question, Verbalance. E6000 for sure. The flight controllers get hot and hot glue gets soft. E6000 doesn't care about heat. So yeah, E6000 is the move for sure to secure your UFL. Great question on your flight controller or AIO. Focus says, "Fiverr with CiottiFPV, since he's talking about my comment way back. He helped me create a custom Betaflight preset for Fractal, which he loves. Playing in a bit." Nice. Thank you, dude. Sprout says, "Is it bad to fly whoops at the beach?" I think so, right? From like a people yelling at you perspective, they won't even be able to hear it over the sound of the ocean. The problem's going to be the wind. The beach is windy, and yeah, you're just going to get the hell beaten out of you. Flying at the beach, you're going to want a toothpick style rig for power and for aerodynamic, better aerodynamics. A tiny whoop with the guards is just every bit of beach wind is going to blow that thing all over the damn place. It's going to be really tough. Bad says, "You can get Amazon affiliate links for all the marketplaces, but you have to set up an account for each. I have UK and US on my channel." That's okay. Thank you for letting me know. Maybe I'll do that one of these days. Man, am I behind on stuff though right now. Focus with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, brother. He says, "Thank you for helping on my 107 Pro FPV mission. Your sessions were critical. They kept me engaged by talking with a pro pilot, inspiration and experience. Did 107 work, got work pro bono using that paid experience, and got hired." Dude, that's awesome, Focus. I love that. Thank you for giving me that update. Thank you for supporting me with the super chat. Very, very, very cool of you. And I'm thrilled that you're getting some work, man. It's very, very fun. Love that shit. Z Bluga says, "Need help today." Today I plugged in my Mobula 8 with V3 VTX, had no video, no SD, just solid green light on the VTX. Any idea what's the problem? When troubleshooting, I know this seems super obvious, but it has to be said, what happened before the problem started? It sounds like you flew it yesterday, it was fine, you plugged it in today, it's broken. But I don't know. For all I know, the last time you flew it, you slammed it into a brick wall at full throttle 18 times in a row. So yeah, the first step in troubleshooting always has to be what just happened. You got to go back in time and think of what happened the last time you flew it. If the last time you flew it, you blasted it into something really hard and then unplugged it, you broke it. You physically broke something, right? If it was totally fine, you unplugged it and you plugged it back in, and now there's an issue, more than likely, it's just a weird... Dog's going crazy outside. Hold on. I'm just listening to see if anybody's going to let him in. Sounds like somebody let him in. All right, cool. Yeah, if you just unplugged it and you plugged it back in and it's just dead... This time that you plugged it in, there could have been like some weird open circuit or like, yeah, I don't know. Something's broken. Do this though. Walk away from it for 24 hours and then plug it back in. Sometimes these things magically just start to work again. It's very strange. So give it a day or two, plug it in here and there, and maybe it'll come back to life. If it didn't, no video, no OSD, just a solid green light. That dog's going fucking crazy. Hold on. Teddy! Teddy, stop it! Teddy! Hey! What are you doing? Get in here. Teddy. Hey. You got it? Thank you. Jesus Christ. All right. Motherfucker's out there picking fights with dogs that are like tripled his size. My God. Yeah. Here's what I can tell you. No video, no OSD means that the VTX is the problem. The camera is not the problem. The flight controller is not the problem. The VTX is the problem. So, yeah. And solid green light should mean that... solid green light should mean that it's bound. I don't even know what... although I don't know what VTX it is. So that makes it difficult. I'm assuming that it's... You said Mobula 8. I don't know what a V3 VTX is. Yeah, I don't have enough to go off of Zabluga. Sorry. But, yeah. Hopefully, what I've said so far has helped. Maybe. Walter says, you need somebody who can express your worth towards Chinese manufacturers. I can. It would be appreciated. I think you meant to type, I'm almost 2 meter SW. Other will listen to me. If you can talk sense to them, please do. Send them my way. Tell them they need to watch my streams or message me. Zabluga says, need help. Here we go. 1S light kit, V3 VTX. Okay. Walksnail 1S light. Okay, yeah. So everything I said was dead on the money. Solid green light should mean that it's bound. But it's not. If it's not sending any OSD, if it's not sending any. After I plug the battery in, there's a solid green light on the VTX. No video, no OSD. Any idea what's wrong? What should I do? Thanks for the help. All right, so now that I know it's Walksnail, big thing I need to know is what happened the last time you flew it. If nothing happened the last time you flew it, sit on it for 24 hours and plug it back in tomorrow, and I bet you it magically comes back to life. It makes no sense, I know, but it has happened to me so many times. It's weird, man. WTF is a kilometer says, will we ever see fiber reinforced whoop frames, material like Benchmade Greavy scales or a Glock frame? I would doubt it. It feels to me like that material would be heavier, and or stiffer. We want these frames to be bendy so that when they crash, they bend and they don't break. But that's interesting. Yeah, it could be too heavy, or it could be too stiff. But yeah, I don't know. Looks like WeBleed replied, which is cool. Walter says, can you do that again? The shutter speed with your eyes. I push record. No! Kinetic with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, homie. He says, you probably answered my question earlier, but I was away. Does 85mm have any benefits for outdoor freestyle? Also, what are your whoop rates? My whoop rates are the same as all my rates. So should yours be. You should not run different rates on anything. Find a rate profile that works for all of the flying that you're doing, and then just fly those rates. You're going to be a much better pilot that way. My rates are Betaflight actual rates. They're 40, 700.7 across the board. Nobody ever likes those rates, though. They're very cinematic rates. If you're not flying cinematic stuff, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to run that much expo. But yeah, I did answer the question about 85mm. Basically, it gives you access to 4-bolt motors. You can carry more weight. You can run bigger batteries. The problem is, at that point, you might as well build a toothpick because the thing's getting so heavy. It's in a plastic frame. Yeah, if you want it to go bigger than 75, in my opinion, go up to a toothpick build, 2-inch, 2.5-inch, and away you go. Thank you for the super generous super chat, my friend. Ramdago says, I did some photography at uni. Still got my old manual Prakika. I've not heard of that brand. Film roll camera. Can I adjust my ant cam and others? Not really. No, analog cameras have very little to no adjustments on them. Every once in a while they'll have some. The ant cam, it does have some adjustments, but typically with like FPV cameras, you get no control over ISO, no control over shutter speed. They just give you like brightness, and it's just like digital settings that they give you, and so it's usually best to just leave them alone. Walter says, what are you, a dolphin or a shark? Beware, trick question. I think I'm a dolphin. Moss1 says, what up, Ciotti? What's up, dude? Ramdango says, what's T7000 for? LOL. Isn't T7000 a grade of carbon fiber, or is that T700? For the record, apparently the grades of carbon fiber are all nonsense. There's not a significant enough difference in the strength for it to matter between one and two of them. Good God, it's after 5 o'clock already. Okay, I did a live stream about replacing an ESC where we didn't even remotely do that. I was also gonna... I got the wrong camera on there. I was also gonna solder some leads up to some LED strip lighting for the back of these things, but I've run out of time to do that for sure. So let me put it here to remind myself to do it at some point. I'll at least do something here because it feels terrible to have a thumbnail and a description of the live stream. Zabluga flew it yesterday and all was okay. Today I plug it in, no video. Yeah, wait 24 hours, Zabluga. I know that sounds absolutely insane, but it has worked many a time. If that doesn't work, it kind of has to be the VTX. I mean, the digital systems, though, they do really rely on the camera, so it could technically be the camera. If you just bought it, contact whoever you bought it from and tell them it's broken and see if they'll send you another one. If it's not under warranty like that, you gotta buy another one, and either the camera or the VTX is going to be the problem. I mean, you'll have a spare. You always want to have spare stuff anyway. So, yeah, I know that's not the answer that you want, but there's not like a beta flight setting that'll make that not work. You know what I mean? So it's it is what it is. There's not a whole lot that you can do about that. Man, this is so fucking annoying. I did all this, and now I'm gonna have to undo all of it. God damn it. This is Flux. If you're not using Flux in your builds, you are making your life unnecessarily difficult. It cleans and transfers heat better than not using Flux. Yes, there is some Flux in the core of the solder that you use, but there's not enough. So using a little bit of extra Flux is a really, really, really good thing. On this build, I've got multiple wires stacked on top of each other on these ESC pads, and so I'm going to remove them one at a time. ESC pads like this require some patience because they need to they're going to absorb a whole bunch of the heat, so just be patient when you're working on this stuff. All right, so I've got the two wires that were on top of the pad removed. Now we're going to go right back in on that pad and try to remove the big old ground lead. We're not going to try to. We're going to. One of the really important things when you're removing this stuff is to not lose your grip on the wire when it's hot, because it will flick solder onto the component that you're working on, and that is not good. So really grip with your fingers on the on the tweezers to make sure that doesn't happen. Give it a second to cool down. I like to do the ground pad first because it will heat up the ESC, and then the positive voltage pad will be super easy. But realistically, you're going to do whichever pad has better access. I run the batteries out the side like this, and so there's always one pad that's a lot easier than the other. And there we go. All right, so we've got, I actually have 4 wires on these pads. 1 wire for the LED, 1 for the capacitor, 1 for the VTX, all on top of the same pad. But those are all for free, and the flux made that a little bit easier. So now we're going to do the motor pads. We're going to reuse this guy here, the XT60. It's cut to the perfect length. So now we're going to move over to the motor pads. I do recommend that you do this in this order because the battery pads kind of get in the way a lot of times. And you're going to put a bunch of heat into the ESC, which is going to make doing the motor pads a little bit easier. All right, and so I'm just adding a little tiny bit of flux to each one. Since I'm not using fresh solder to remove stuff, it's a really good idea to use flux when you're doing stuff like this. And then what's cool is a little bit of this flux will still be left over on these pads. So when I next time I install this ESC, I probably won't need to use flux, but I won't remember by then, and I'll probably do it again. On an ESC, on a component that doesn't have not a motor, there's pretty much no such thing as too much flux, unless you're trying to build something that you're gonna fly for the next 100 years. But look, you should be crashing. When you're crashing, you're not gonna fly the same. You're gonna be working on this stuff again. So yeah, just use lots of flux, and you'll get better quality work that'll be stronger. If you have the time, use flux and then use a toothbrush with ISO to isopropyl alcohol to remove the flux residue. Flux is slightly acidic, so if you let it sit on components for long enough, it will negatively affect them. But we're talking like 10, 15, 20 years, and the tech's going to change by then. You're going to have crashed a million times by then. In my opinion, it's just not really necessary for us to clean all the flux off. And I actually really like having some of the residue there, because next time I go to work on it, if I'm being lazy and I don't add flux, there will already be some on the board. I hope you guys aren't just looking at my fucking wrist. Of course you are. Sorry about that. Just a reminder to move the work to the camera. I also had my hand in a terrible position. That was a really bad example of... That was an example of what not to do. Don't get all twisted up like that. Move the work around so that you're holding it in like a comfortable way, and you'll get much better. Your work will be much better quality. Unfortunately, when I'm doing this stuff for the camera, I can't always do that. I have to more prioritize like moving the work to the camera. But I was doing it wrong in both respects a minute ago, so don't be like me. Do as I say, not as I do. Just trying to melt this back together. Sometimes these get a little bit splayed out on the pads. There we go. All right, cool. So this ESC is now free to go back in the box, and hopefully there will be a day that there's an easy way to update the old ass BLHeli32 firmware that's on this thing. But for right now, there is not. Right now, there is not an easy way to put this thing onto AM32, and there is no way at the moment to update the BLHeli32 firmware that's on this thing, which is just maddening. But hey, whatever. All right. So let's get this guy out of here, and we will drop the new one, well, the old one in, actually. Let's get this new one out of here, and we'll put the old one back in. Yeah, that's about it. Although it is after 5, and I'm getting hungry, and Maggie and I have dance class at 7, so I'm definitely not going to get the new ESC all the way installed, but I'm going to do as much as I realistically can to give myself enough time to get changed, get a bite to eat, and get on out the door. Come on! Damn it! Get out of there! There we go. Alright. I just want to take a quick look at these pads to make sure that, since I've got heat in this thing right now, I might as well make sure that these pads all have enough solder on them. Yeah, they look fine. Alright, so yeah, this is good. I feel comfortable putting this away for a while. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take... I forgot to... I should have paid attention to what version it's on so that I could write that down. But what I'll just say is old... Oh, come on now. I gotta get another one of these pens. Sharpies, rather. Why do fine-tipped Sharpies go so dry so fast? Old... Come on. Old ass version of BL Heli 32 with no RPM filtering. All right, so there we go. There's my note to future me. Guys, leave yourself notes. For the love of God, leave yourself notes. I know you think you're going to remember, but you're not going to remember. And as soon as you don't remember, you've wasted a shitload of time. You've wasted way more time than it would have taken to leave yourself a simple little note. Write shit down. Save these plastic bags so that you can write on them. Yeah. Do future you favors. All right. And there we go. And back into the ESC box this shall go. With a note letting me know what's up. And so back in goes the previous ESC that I incorrectly diagnosed as being bad. Okay, so let's just move this shit out of the way. This out of the way here. And I'm going to throw one bolt in it just to kind of hold it down a little bit. What is this here? Is this just like a chunk of tree? Yeah, it is. Alright, so I'm just going to put one in there just to kind of hold it down. Okay, got that. Let's solder up these motor wires. I probably used flux on this thing when I was taking those motor wires off. So in theory, it still has some flux on it, but I'm gonna add a little bit more. Sometimes you can kind of see it. It's like a resiny kind of shit. But again, there's typically not. Yeah, it typically doesn't matter if you use too much of it. So I'm just gonna come and hit each one of these with a little tiny bit from this super handy syringe. I really recommend you get a flux syringe like this. It's gonna have this like pasty, kind of waxy, gel-like flux that stays exactly where you put it. The flux pen is okay, but it's very fluid, and so you touch it there and the flux flows all over the place. The syringes in my, yeah, they work a lot better for me. So I think you should use those, but you do you. You're allowed to have your favorite. All right, so let's get in here with the tweezers and start to get these guys on here. One of the little tricks with motor wires is to try to get them as flat to the pad as you possibly can. Clean the tip of the soldering iron. The flatter you get these wires on the pad, the stronger they will be. In case they ever get pulled on, they'll be pulling straight sideways on the pad, versus if you have them up at an angle, they're gonna like more try to rip the pad up and off. So try to get these wires nice and flat on these pads. It's not all that difficult. You just have to like kind of force yourself to do it. The smoke that you see is the flux evaporating. Once you no longer have smoke, all of the flux has evaporated, which is not great. So you want to try to get it done quick. And if you do it right, you'll have nice shiny balls. Shiny balls are very important, both for form and function. There we go. While it's still warm, I like to try to put a little bit of a bend in the wire there, just so that it wraps down around the ESC, and so the wires are not sticking out, asking to get caught up in branches and shit. Sometimes I'll even use a little metal flat part here to just get a little angle on it there. All right, so let's get these guys out of the way here so we can do this next motor. Murder. Get out of there. Get out of the way. Jerk. Okay. Nice and flat on the pad. Tip of the soldering iron is there to provide heat. It's not there to hold the wires. You need to hold the wire in your left hand. Your off hand, I should say. You're allowed to be left-handed. Oh, that'd be cool to be ambidextrous. Yo, this would be way easier if I were ambidextrous. Be an interesting thing to learn. I don't quite have this flat on the pad. Right now I'm struggling because the camera is kind of in the way and I want to show this to you guys, but yeah, it'll be alright. There we go. See how that's no longer shiny? It's not the end of the world. It's still a solid joint. If this were not a Freestyle basher, I might come back in there and add a little bit of flux and just reheat that joint. But this is this ESC, these Aikon ESCs are so durable though that I am actually going to do that because this ESC might never have to come back off of this. So I'm just going to add a blob of flux there on top, and I'm just going to rework what's called reworking this joint. It's just reheating it. So hold it, hold the wire exactly where it is, reheat it. Flux is going to clean off the oxidation. and make absolutely no difference. Let me pick up a little bit of fresh solder. That should help. Fresh solder, which has some fresh flux in it. Not the shiniest, but definitely not as awful as it was a second ago. So, good enough. Okay. I'm having a hard time grabbing this wire in a way that I can get it flat on the pad. Let's try grabbing it down there. There we go. Okay, here we go with this one. While it's hot, put a little bend in it. And the last one on this side. Feels like it's almost too short. Actually, it's just right though. You want the insulation to be right off the side of the board. And there you go. There it is, my friends. It is almost 5:30. I'm going to bail. If nobody clips that, I'm going to be very fucking disappointed. Very disappointed. Rinse and repeat. Do that on the other side with the other motors. And then big old battery pads is going to be battery pad is here, battery lead down first, and then on top of that blob of solder, right? So it's going to be the pad and then the battery lead coming off at an angle to the side, going at the side of the rig. And then it's going to be smaller wires on top of that solder pad. So it's going to be like a 22 gauge wire for the capacitor, and then it's going to be a 30 gauge wire for the LED, and then it's going to be another like 30 gauge wire for the VTX, and just boom, 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 right on top of that big blob of solder coming off the wire. Yeah, nothing crazy, but let me get caught up on chat, and I'm going to shut this mother down. Grim Douglas says, Tiny Whoop has T7000, so I got some, was going to try on a loose prop. Oh, T7000. Yeah. T7000 is just like E6000, but it's a little bit different. On Tiny Whoop's website, he talks about what's different about it. The main thing is it's black. It works just like E6000, though. I've used them both. They're super similar. I would not try it on a loose prop, though. Do the thing that I always show you. Use your least favorite sharp tipped tweezers, put it into the prop opening, scrape it around to raise some of that plastic up. Brandon's Baked Bean says, my buddy bought an old BL 32 stack just now. It's really old, but lucky it has 32.7 on it already. Nice. I can't imagine how old these Aikons are to have 32.4, I think it was, that was on it. Notice says, I'm out. See you next time. Thanks as always. You're certainly welcome. WeBleed says, until next time, heading to the post office. Thanks for all the orders, gangly gangers. Always mad props. Walter says, Embry what? And we're going to leave it there. Walter, post less often, but more text. There's like 13 Walter posts in a row. Hit enter less often, and you'll be good to go. Thanks, friends. I'll see you tomorrow night at 10. Not a giveaway stream. I don't know what we'll be doing. Monday Night Madness. You guys want to see some Betaflight setup stuff? I have... it's been sitting here for far too long. I have a Tiny Whoop Freestyle. And I forget what this is called. That need, like, all the stuff. So, yeah. One of these days, I'm going to do a stream with Betaflight setup. Just getting them bound, do all the Betaflight setup stuff, rates, all that jazz, and then we can fly them. But, yeah, I figure it's, you know, there's stuff. There's Betaflight stuff that we don't talk about super often. Can I delete these flight footage files from today? I'll leave them. Thanks for hanging, gringos. Be good. I'll see you next time. Next time being tomorrow night at 10 Eastern. Here's me chasing a pickup truck and inevitably landing on the pickup truck bed. That's what you do when you're chasing a drift pickup truck. Love you, bye!